I'm Mel Barrett.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie.
Welcome to Something's Off, a true crime podcast where we talk about things that just make us say, what the fuck? That's about it. And
Loading up the swear jar. Preload. I'm putting $40 in right now. That's how many swears I anticipate.
Wow.
We're going to be seeing in this episode. You don't think I'm not just taking the same money out and putting it in over and over again?
I know.
No. Sometimes, no, there's some money in here. Like I put some in
like
on
the
behalf of Laura.
Starbucks baristas usually preload.
Yeah, so well, I have a couple singles at the bottom, and then I have the 20s at the top, so it looks like more than it is. It's a strategy, you know. Always be selling.
Yeah. Okay, well, this is gonna be a mega fucking episode.
Yes.
That's all I can say.
Yes.
Because we have so much to talk about, and
I was texting you so much news in the last couple of days. I was like, I'm sorry,
we were
sorry.
both so busy too. And like, I was like getting your text and I'm like, oh God, I can't look at this right now. But right off the top, let me just say thanks to all the tippers. We love you guys. And all the people that have signed up for memberships and have done super chats. Again, bear with us, have some patience. We're still figuring out how YouTube works. We are going to do a live here pretty soon. I don't know when, but we'll let you know. And then we'll figure out, you know, how to deal with all the comments and super chats and stuff like that. And if you are only listening to this and you would like to tip us because you love us and you know how much work we put into this, the Venmo is at Mel Barrett Writes, and it's Barrett is spelled with 2 R's and 2 T's, and Writes is like handwriting.
Yep.
So Mel Barrett Writes, send over the tips. We really appreciate you.
Look at the graphic right here that she just put here because I told her to. Yes.
She loves to direct the graphics.
I do. I'm not doing post-production on this, so I know I'm creating work for you, and I'm very sorry. But when you mention the monetization of the show by listeners who have been so generous and so want to support us, put up the graphic. Make it easy. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I want to say before we get into all this, because we have sort of a list of things to talk about, but I think all of you know that we're going to be talking about this new complaint filed by Karen Reed against all of the defendants, all of them.
Well, most of them. Some are going to be added later, to be clear.
Yeah. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. I am, if this helps you in any way, if you don't have the patience to sit down and read, I am going to be recording a reading of the entire 46-page complaint, and it will be out on the In Between podcast tomorrow.
Wow.
It will be out on the In Between podcast Friday, the same day that this episode comes out.
Okay. It's interesting.
So if you want to reference it.
I don't want to like toot my own horn, but I was on Core TV last night talking about this.
Yes, you were.
And they had a producer read some of the complaint, and I had read the whole thing thoroughly twice.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best written civil complaints I've ever read. And it's just extremely, when I say that, I mean it's extremely readable. It's extremely clear. It's like if someone knew nothing about the Karen Reed case and wanted to understand all the suspicion into it, like this is a really good primer.
This is it. Yep.
Because it doesn't get into, there's so many things that could have been in here that aren't, but it's like the basics of the cop stuff and the basics of the House defendant stuff. And it's just, it's really, really good. But they had somebody read portions of it, producer, and I was like sitting here and I was just waiting to talk. And I was like, wow, that really is kind of juicy. It makes a good audio product.
Well, that's the reason why I decided to read it, because it actually, it reads like an opening or a closing statement in court, but it's also really good storytelling and it's easy to read. So I was like, well, you know, I can probably do all 46 pages. Of course, my voice is like a little bit hoarse today, but yeah, I plan to have the entire complaint on the In Between podcast, which I will link to in the show notes. So
good for you.
Do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So last time we were together, we talked about that piece of tape. I don't know if it was the last time or the time before. Recently, we were together. We talked about that piece of tape that Lindsay Gaitani shared on her Twitter, which was Leah Genduso, whose history I will not go into right now, left her a message or sent her a voice memo in like late 2023 saying, I can't believe I didn't think about this before. What you need to do, and by the way, we know that tape was staticky. That's how it came. We didn't make it staticky. Right. I can't believe I didn't think of this before. You need to call Ken Mello, special prosecutor in Aidan Carney's case, and get him to make you a witness. And that way, Aidan Carney will be so afraid that he's going to be arrested. By the way, I am paraphrasing, that he will leave you alone. So I wasn't
Sketchy.
wrong that this was important tape. It was.
Yeah.
So a couple of things have happened in the Turtleboy Aidan Carney case. Now, the cases that are still alive against him in Massachusetts are the witness intimidation cases against the McAlberts, and then also the window case where he looked into the pizza shop and talked into the camera. So there was supposed to be, they had filed a motion to dismiss in that case a while back, the so-called mega motion. Hi, Ruby. And there was supposed to be a response due by the prosecutor, who is now Cosgrove, whole different prosecutor, because Mello has had to recuse himself, and also I guess he's ill. And that response now, as of this taping, I think it's been 4 days. It just hasn't been filed. Not only did he miss the deadline, but there's been no filing to explain missing the deadline. There's been no correspondence to the defendant's team, Turtleboy's team, saying this is what nothing. It's just been silence. And there's still a hearing scheduled in a few days, I think. But this is it's just silence. And so they filed yet another motion that I read in that case saying, we now have a bunch of stuff that wasn't disclosed by the Commonwealth, including, and they included a centerpiece of this, that piece of audio. And apparently also Lindsay Gaitani has emailed Turtleboy and his team some stuff, some emails that
Good
more
for you,
point
Gaitani.
to. I agree. And I know it is, like I said, very difficult and will be difficult for her if she ever decides to roll back her rape accusation. It will be. She didn't do that. If there wasn't so much evidence she didn't do it, I could be more circumspect about it, but she didn't. I mean, he didn't. And she, I don't think is, I follow her on Twitter. I don't know her personally. It seems like she is full guns blaring around Jen McCabe, Kate Peter, everybody that's fucked her over, the cops, Mello, Cosgrove, Morrissey, and she still can't cross that Rubicon. So I don't know if we'll ever see that. So I don't know if we'll ever see Lindsay Gaitani appears on Turtle Club. I don't know if that will happen, but she has forwarded him some very incriminating stuff that was not part of their disclosure. So now there's this whole other reason to dismiss. So I'm hoping, who knows, maybe by the time this comes out, the case will be dismissed, but I think it will be dismissed. I really do. And I think that him not filing the response is that signal. And I did say, by the way, when the McAlberts put out their statement a few days ago, that they were saying that they intended to sue Karen Reed, I thought one of two things. They know something's coming. That's what I thought immediately.
They knew already.
The thing that I thought they knew was coming that day was I thought maybe they had been told that the charges against Turtleboy were going to be dismissed because he was also named in that statement of intent or whatever it was to file a lawsuit. So we know that Lindsay Gaitani was told that in advance of the charges being dropped in the case around her. So I thought maybe they had gotten that call about his case. I think that I'm not sure that they haven't been gotten that call, but I think what actually happened was they were served notice of the lawsuit that Karen Reed was about to file against them. And so this was their warning shot across the bow situation that I almost can guarantee is not going to materialize into an actual lawsuit. Anyway, so that's what's going on in the Aidan Carney case. I think it's super interesting that there's just been no reply. It's very much in line with the pattern of the Commonwealth. That being said, usually there's some milk toasty thing that's like, hey, but now they have one judge who's been assigned to the case, who apparently is a very reasonable judge, who is no longer being any of this courtroom hopping stuff like this. Yep. So anyway, that's where we are with that.
Yeah, I think just to add one thing to it, I think it actually has been verified that the McAlberts actually received the complaint and then put out that statement.
Yeah.
It was in response. And it was just before everybody else was able to read all of the accusations.
Because stuff gets docketed on the public side, and then the files come out, but it's docketed like the end of the business day or the next business day. Right. And when you are served with a suit, you are typically the first one to see that suit. Having currently have someone in my house participating in a civil suit, I've seen how this goes. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay, the next updates, this should be pretty quick, but we talked pretty in depth about Brian Walshe in one episode, and then we gave some updates about the final pretrial hearing before he goes on trial for murder, the murder of his wife, Anna Walshe. So this week they were choosing jury, they were picking the jury, but something sort of explosive happened because on the first day that they were picking jurors, he walked in and he pled guilty to 2 of the 3 counts, specifically misleading a police investigation and improperly conveying a human body, meaning he chopped his wife up.
Or something. There's no body. We don't know. There's no body. There's no body parts. He did something with the body. Yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is we are still carrying on, however. The trial is supposed to begin on December 1st for murder. But he is saying that he basically obstructed the police investigation and disposed of her body.
Yeah. In Massachusetts, do you know, I know this because my husband and I have written several books together, true crime books.
Good books, too. Everybody should go read them.
I don't know about that. But in our reporting, in at least 2 or 3 of the cases, I think 3, the thing that I learned is that disposing of remains, lying about remains, or not reporting remains that you have discovered is a misdemeanor in the state of New Hampshire. So you can say this person died, and this is what happened also, by the way, in the Robert Durst Jinx case with his neighbor in Texas, who he probably murdered and dismembered. And there's literally video of him dragging the guy's body out like in a trash bag. I know it's not funny, but it's an absurd imagery.
Well, because he's absurd.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think he was found not guilty of any crimes other than disposing of the body, which was not like a huge big deal at the time, because he said the person died by accident or whatever. So I think that might be what's going on here. I don't know what to the level of crime that improperly conveying of a body is in Massachusetts, but I'm guessing it's not that bad because he's clearly changing his story.
The way that I'm understanding it, just by listening to other law tubers, like Peter Tragos, it seems to me like it's a strategy. I would encourage everybody to go watch. I think it was the last live that Peter Tragos did. He did it with his dad, who's a pretty big time attorney, and they broke down the strategy behind this. And I think part of it has to do with, yes, he wouldn't get life without. I think I understood it to be that. Go watch it for yourself so you understand it. So because I'm not a lawyer, obviously, even though I play one on TV. The other issue, one of the things that was brought up was that they may just be delaying to see what happens in the trial, because right now Tragos was saying that it seems like the defense kind of knows they're cooked, right? They have a huge case against them. But if they get into trial and the prosecution feels like they're in trouble, they can offer him a plea at that point, because the prosecution isn't offering him any kind of plea right now for the murder charge.
Right. Why would he plead guilty if there's nothing on the table to do that for? I mean, that's common sense. If you committed a murder and they're not saying, hey, if you just say you did it, you might get out in 40 years instead of the rest of your life or whatever. If they're not offering you anything, of course you're going to plead not guilty. Why would you plead? Why would you admit to anything if there's no upside to you admitting something other than doing the right thing and being a good person? But it's just, it makes sense. It makes total sense.
Yeah. And I think that the idea is also that the defense is obviously going to say that either it was an accident or he killed her in self-defense, which that's what I think that's what I was talking about with a lesser charge. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know if they can change, because it's murder 1. So I don't know how they can change to second degree. And then also there's no body.
It would have to be a plea. It would have to be a plea deal. It would have to be like, we will offer you, manslaughter conviction and you'll serve this in exchange for your stipulation or allocution in court of whatever you did. Like that's what it would look like. I mean, they can change the charges in a plea deal. One of the cases that we wrote about was a missing body case, and
Mazzalia.
Seth Mazzalia, young man who murdered this young woman, Lizzie Marriott, And then he and his girlfriend at the time put her body in a suitcase, took it to a park and the Piscataqua River, which is where the ocean meets the inland river in New Hampshire. It's a huge tidal zone, and pushed her out to sea, and like her remains were never recovered. And so, you know, this is like a lot of stuff came from confession from the girlfriend, Kat McDonough, at the time. So, you know, she was able to say all this stuff. But like to this day, I mean, he's been trying to get his verdict overturned for a really long time. Not having the body is a huge issue in that case. It has been a huge issue. He's been convicted. So, but it's a huge issue sort of at the core of any doubt that anybody could have if he were ever to be given another trial. So.
Well, and I think that there's going to be a huge core of doubt in this trial because of what's being reported about what happened at that building in D.C. I mean, there are so many scenarios where she could have been murdered by someone else, or she could have been disappeared, you know, or she could have figured out a way to get out of the country, or whatever it might have been.
You're not saying this is what happened. You're saying this is what the defense could say happened.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The defense has a lot of options. And then to add Michael Proctor into it, you know, they have a lot of options to help this guy get out of these charges. I don't know Anna Walshe. I never knew Anna Walshe, and I don't pretend to know how she felt about her family, but it's hard for me to believe that she would leave her young children.
Yeah.
You know, because she was already planning to move them to D.C.
It's likely she met an unfortunate end in the presence of Brian Walshe. That is,
yes.
If I were a civil juror right now, looking at the more likely than not standard, that's the way I would lean. That being said, he still has all the rights and protections that you and I have and should have. And if Michael Proctor fucked this up, that's not on Brian Walshe. Yeah.
The only other thing that happened in the Walshe case this week is they're going to impanel 16 jurors. They have 12 primary jurors, and they need to add 4.
As of this taping, we should say.
As of this taping, they need to add 4 alternates. So they think they're going to have that done before Thanksgiving. And then, like I said, December 1st is the trial. Judge Diane Frenier.
We're just going with whatever. Well, until we hear someone say it out loud, like I heard Deitch say in his own ad, we don't know.
That's a scary one. Because that could go so many ways. Judge Diane emphasized that the juror, this is interesting, it's not out of the norm, but it's really heavily, like she's really pushing on this one. She emphasized that the jurors must agree not to be on any social media and not to watch, read, or listen to any news in any form while the trial is going on, which they're expecting it to be 4 to 5 weeks long.
Right. Well, that's always the rule, but the fact that she's stressing it tells me that she's aware of the climate around criminal news involving Michael Proctor in Massachusetts right now.
Well, that, and, you know, the defense did ask them to change venues because of the media attention. So there is a lot of media attention on this. I don't think anybody could agree to not watch the news or be on social media for 4 or 5 weeks. I don't see how that's possible in our society unless you're sequestered. But they've found 12 people so far who have completely agreed to that. So we'll see what happens. So that was it with Brian Walshe. There was a major thing that happened this week that you and I are both very excited about. And I'm going to let you take this one.
I am so excited. Beverly Cannoni.
Auntie Bev.
In the case of Corri Hopkins / Marbury v. Mad versus the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office in her efforts to unseal the many, numerous, and very long sidebars from both Karen Reed trials. She says it's her Roman Empire. Beverly Cannoni has signed off an order saying all the transcripts not involving jurors and juror issues should be transcribed and released, and there is compelling reason for their release. So it looks now like what's happening is the Norfolk County DA's office is agreeing to a stipulation with Hopkins that would make it so they don't have to have another hearing and that they would just agree. So she's got him. And I will say Paula Prado, who was on the jury, has said that she would like the juror stuff. She says names can be redacted, but the juror stuff should be out. I want to know if there were issues with me, or if there were conversations about me. And she's right. I mean, I think that redacting names and any identifiable information is the right thing to do. But we're not there yet. That being said, we are going to get so much information from these sidebars that is directly applicable to civil case stuff that we won't see for a really long time in the civil case. Because the civil case timeline is right now it's docketed for like 2028.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
this one 2028.
Oh,
The O'Keefe's one is
Yes.
docketed for 2027. But remember, keep in mind, like a lot of the process of these cases is, behind closed doors. It's depositions, it's evidence gathering. It's, it's very different, and it's not quite the same level of transparency. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I think we are going to get so much in these sidebars because we're going to get conversations about evidence that Beverly Cannoni would not let in.
Yes.
And questions that she would not let them ask. And things that witnesses were not allowed to say. Think about what Karina Kolakethis, for instance, was and wasn't allowed to say. Think about what Dr. LaPosado was and wasn't allowed to say. Think about all the people who wanted to opine on something and were like, the garage, That is all going to be in these sidebars. Any objection, any conversations about objections, and you're going to hear lawyers. I anticipate we're going to have lawyers like Jackson and Yannetti and Alessi saying the reason why they wanted to be able to bring something in. It's going to be, this is going to be like watching the trial all over again. I am so excited about it. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, Auntie Bev said, sidebars? I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Finally. Yeah, she said it. I'm excited about it. It's one of the things that I've always wanted to see. I think that one of the areas where I'm disappointed is that I don't know if we're actually going to find out anything more about the Albert Rock, because that was specific to jurors. So I think that will probably be out of there.
You never know.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, Corri Hopkins, her hands are no longer legally tied. The only thing is we're waiting for them to be transcribed, unless they already are transcribed, which we don't know. So we don't know when we're going to get them, but they will be released to the public, and I can't wait to talk about it. It's going to be all new information.
Yeah.
It's going to be information that has been alluded to and we've all discussed, but this is going to be the concrete details of everything that we all knew about the case and the investigation, because a lot of us watch, pretrial hearings and motions and things like that. But it's going to be there, and it's going to be rulings from Bev, and we're going to be able to understand better how that moved testimony.
Right.
And what the jury actually saw. And I'm so excited about it.
Me too.
We have one more piece of information about Deitch.
Yes.
I'll let you take that one, and then I have 2 questions for you.
Yes. So, I sent this to you. I sent you his ad, right? And all that. So he has this. So this guy Deitch, his ad name's Adam Deitch. As of, I guess it's 11 days now, as we're taping this. 11 days ago, he was working as a prosecutor at the in the Justice Department in Boston. So this is the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston. He was a prosecutor.
Cushy job.
He worked for Josh Levy, and now he's been working for who's the woman's name who took over for him?
No idea.
He's worked there as of 11 days ago. He worked there. He was involved in the investigation around the John O'Keefe death, which
the misconduct
is widely believed to actually be an investigation into Michael Morrissey's office or the cops or something bigger that the John O'Keefe case came into play in. He has announced he is now running for Norfolk DA. Now, I've seen some pretty credible people online, including Tim Bradel, say that Morrissey is not going to be running in this coming election cycle, and I would be shocked if he did. I would be so shocked.
He hasn't raised any money.
If he hasn't raised any money, but also like he only can lose. I mean, he has nothing to gain by running again. He's not going to win. And it's going to be embarrassing. So,
and he's been hiding under a rock since the
100% he has. So this guy came out, Adam Deitch, and he put out a campaign ad yesterday as we're taping this, basically talking directly about this, saying, I know what's been going on. Again, paraphrasing. There's a lot of lack of public trust and issues in this office, and my agenda going in will be to restore honor, dignity, and, proper action to this place. And I saw this and I thought, a couple of things. It is an interesting move to go from being a prosecutor to at the federal level to a prosecutor at like the county level for state cases. That's a very interesting career trajectory. It's a political choice because you have to be elected. I wonder how much of it is him. this whole thing, it's like there are things we will never know. We will never know some things about the federal investigation until and unless there is an indictment. So he might be led by frustration about the fact that this case was shelved for the time being. And I just want to remind viewers again, you can deny it all you want, but it is in fact true. And if you ask someone who works for the Trump administration, they would tell you that it's true.
Yes.
That in February of 2025, just before it was announced that the federal case looking into the John O'Keefe murder was closed, the Trump administration sent out a memo to all the U.S. attorneys' offices, and they have effectively, they stopped several investigations into police departments. They stopped investigations that would have led to consent decrees, and they have since dismantled the Public Integrity Unit. Sure, the unit itself, does it still exist on paper? Yeah, but people have been moved to other kinds of cases. And this is very public. This is not a conspiracy theory. So it is likely, it's not unlikely, that this case was a civil rights or public integrity case. And both of those kinds of cases have been all but ceased since Trump came into office, unless they are on behalf of pro-Trump actors. Now, again, this is not an anti-Trump thing that I'm saying. It is a true thing. And this is, I believe, why the case was paused. I don't think that they specifically told Hank Brennan, I will never believe for a second that we have closed the investigation, because that is not a thing that they do. But I do believe...
They certainly didn't tell Jennifer McCabe.
Yeah, I believe that they were told that we are maybe not taking any action at this point or something like that. Anyway, so this guy is now, he worked on that case, and he is now running for Norfolk County DA. I think he's got a good chance of winning, given just what I've seen in terms of traction already for his campaign. What do you think?
I'm torn. I think that he knows it's sort of an easy win, because I don't think Morrissey would ever win. And if he can say he worked on the federal investigation into this, he's going to have a lot of people on his side. I question. I mean, I don't know where his political leanings are. We don't normally know with any kind of feds what their political leanings are. So
he's going to have to run as a party person. So he's probably going to be a Democrat, because nobody wins when they're Republican, and usually the Democratic primary is essentially the election in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and I was about to say, I'm assuming he's a Democrat, and that's why he stepped away from his cushy job to do this, because he probably doesn't want to be involved in this administration. I don't know. I'm kind of reserving judgment. I assume he's going to win, and I assume that he's going to win because of the fact that he was on this investigation. I don't know what that means for anything. It doesn't seem like anybody was held accountable so far, so I'm frustrated by that.
A lot of the cops have been moved, fired, demoted.
And had their vacation days taken away, but this was extreme misconduct, where someone was facing a life sentence in prison and went to trial twice, and the Commonwealth spent millions of dollars to try to put this woman in prison, and she was innocent. So the fact that nothing came out and nothing was found and nobody was really reprimanded is frustrating to me. But they may not have had enough.
Well. Yeah, but the timing worked out well for Michael Morrissey, because part of me has always wondered if the reason why he prosecuted Karen Read again was to delay any action by the feds in their investigation into him. Because one thing that is true is that very often the feds will wait until a state or local case is completed, because they don't want to taint the proceeding. They don't want to, be involved in the proceedings as two different jurisdictions. So by charging and by keeping the charges in place and trying her again, Morrissey could have been a tactic to delay any kind of action there. Slowing things down is a very, very classic, obviously legal tactic. It's a classic regulatory tactic.
Sure.
How often have you heard is something is poisonous, but we need more research to make sure? Like, that is a classic tactic. So he really kind of lucked out, if that was the case, that Trump was then elected. I mean, everybody was saying that if Trump was elected, the federal investigation into the Karen Read case would likely cease. Even Turtleboy said that when he was on my show. Like, that was a known thing. And I don't necessarily think that he was banking on Trump being elected, but certainly a new administration period brings its own upheaval. So to push the trial, to do it again, to have it go into the new year, to have it be February, March after the inauguration, like it really worked out well for him.
Yeah, and I think it falls in line with sort of what we're seeing, with this. We have one other major story that I didn't put it in our notes, but this week the Congress voted unanimously, except for one guy, to have a bill to release the Epstein files, and Donald Trump has signed it. The issue, though, is again, powerful men using their power to sort of take advantage of the system and the people in the system. And I heard another story this week as it pertains to people being pulled off their federal jobs and put in other places, like what we're just talking about. But the FBI, there were several FBI agents who are very, very, very close to breaking up a sex trafficking ring. And they have found videos, and I hate to talk about this, but they've found videos of a small child, and they are this close to identifying her and figuring out where she is. And then they were pulled off of sex trafficking and put into ICE.
Mm-hmm.
And from what the stories that I've been hearing this week are that these poor agents who put so much into trying to help these young children are now having to basically walk away from these cases they've spent years on, and being that close to identifying someone's child and where they might be to go work for immigration. They're trying desperately on nights and weekends to find this child. So on their own time, they're trying to find this child. So in that, situation, it's hurting that kid, it's hurting those agents. But in, Morrissey's situation, it sounds like it helped him maybe. I don't know.
It did.
But
it helped him tremendously.
Again, it's just, it's men in power sort of, gumming up the works. It's the same thing that Murdoch did. Anytime
Murdoch.
he
Mandy Matney would be so mad at you. It's Murdoch.
I know, it's Murdoch. Yellick Merc. Yellick Merc. Anytime that he needed to find some more money, he figured out a way to postpone proceedings, to slow things down. It's a tactic. It's what, the Speaker of the House just did so that they wouldn't have to release the Epstein files. He didn't swear in Grahava for I don't know how many days it was after she got elected, but he wouldn't swear her in, so she couldn't be that vote.
Yeah.
They didn't need the vote. It was unanimous, except for that one dude.
Well, they didn't need to vote at all because I think folks know this, but there doesn't have to be a bill to release the Epstein files.
No, there doesn't.
The president is in charge of the Justice Department. The Justice Department is part of the executive branch, and the executive branch has its own ability just to say, but make these public. There didn't have to be a vote at all.
He's in charge of the DOJ, except he's not supposed to be telling the Attorney General.
He's not supposed to be directing them how to do investigations and who to investigate. Yeah, this is a. And by the way, the Supreme Court has ruled that he has more power. The presidency has more power than it would have had before their ruling. So we can say very fairly he's not supposed to. They're not supposed to. But if in fact the highest court of the land says it's not unconstitutional, then it isn't. That's how the Supreme Court works. So, there's a lot of questions there, but yes, delay. Priorities of criminal
move people
justice
around.
Shifting. Yes.
Take them off of important cases. Yeah, bullshit like that. So anyway,
we're going to get some sidebars,
well.
which is going to have a lot of mention of federal shit in it too.
Sidebar. I'll allow it. Okay, I have two questions for you before we get into the meat of this episode. And that is, I hear that you have heard from John Depetro. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, this is like a famous conversation between you, and now you can give me such shit about it. So I tweeted something about John Depetro a few weeks ago.
How do you explain who John Depetro is for those in our audience who do not know who this man is?
John Depetro is a former radio host from Rhode Island who in about a little less than 20 years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, had a scandal. He had a talk show in Rhode Island, and there was this scandal that everybody in media in New England talked about because, I heard about it when I started working radio in 2010, so it must have been just before that. But he there are these ratings books. Nielsen is the sort of gold standard of ratings in radio and TV. But the reason that those ratings matter, and I'm sorry I'm getting into the weeds, but this is why this is
it's
like
fine.
Very telling about this person. The ratings matter because it's not just a question of saying I'm number one or I'm number two in the market. It's how the station sells ads to potential advertisers. They say, this is how many people are listening. This is like FCC, it's a big fucking deal to not fuck with your ratings book. So, for instance, if I have gotten Nielsen books at my house and they pay you like $2, it's like illegal for me to fill out that survey. Like I cannot do it because I work at a radio station, right? So it was discovered after his show was deemed to be something like second in the market, that several of the diaries, the Nielsen diaries, had come from one address, which was his address.
Right.
And then later, he told the media that it was his wife, unbeknownst to him, who had filled out all those diaries and sent them in. So this is how I knew who he was before all this started. And when I saw him sort of pop up in the Karen Reed verse, I was like, oh, that's that guy. That's what he's doing now.
He's on Court TV quite a bit talking about Karen.
He was, yeah. And he has a blog, YouTube channel, all that same stuff. And his typical fare is like listening to the Scanner and going on the street and getting scandalous footage that's very often tinged with a lot of racism. All the stuff you would imagine, like using, barely coded dog whistle language around things. And, I wouldn't call it highbrow. I mean, a lot of people aren't doing highbrow stuff, but his is like not good. He also, by the way, we know is cozy with the Alberts. Although in one of his texts to me, he claimed that's not to be true. We've seen photos of him. We saw a photo with him notably having lunch with Brian Albert at Patriot Place, etc. And he was one of the most virulent, strong, loud-mouthed anti-Karen Reed media types on the internet sphere. And he would say things that just weren't true. Right. He was in court during the trial. And on days where Hank Brennan would have an objectively, not by my measure, but an objectively bad day, where something would go like really wrong, Depetro would say, he's a genius. He had that whole jury in the palm of his hand. And like literally every other reporter in court from major outlets all the way down to Turtleboy were like, oh, it was a fucking disaster today for the prosecution in the Karen Reed case. But he was so enamored with the idea of being close to Brennan, close to the Alberts.
Sure.
There's a story that he was catfished into thinking that someone representing Hank Brennan was corresponding with him, and he like carried on that correspondence forever. This is just this is not how journalism works. This is not how journalists work. And he's also just not, he doesn't come across as a person with good intentions in any way. So I tweeted something about him. I'll open it.
Read them. Read the tweets.
So
bring the receipts. Read the tweets.
My stupid DMs from John Depetro. So I tweeted
Wait, have you read them yet?
No.
Oh, shit.
I tweeted about him so there was recently a video that was posted of him being chased around by some young kids on one of these Scanner reporting outings and them calling him names. And I tweeted, I frown on this kind of thing usually, but I genuinely feel he's earned it.
Uh-oh.
And he wrote back to me in a DM, I have earned it. Why don't you grow up? Netflix and NPR? What he's referring to there is my bio on Twitter says I make a I make a podcast for Netflix and I work not at NPR but at New Hampshire Public Radio. And he clearly is, I think, not clearly, but to me it read like he's trying to intimate like I know where you work, grow up, whatever it is. And by the way, calling out people's workplaces is a very common tactic among like this whole crowd of people. Anyway, so I wrote back to him. Do you want to hear what I wrote? Is this interesting to people? Okay.
This is interesting to me.
Hi, John. As I said, I do frown on it. Being called a pedo in public isn't cool at best. And as far as I know, that accusation is unfounded. So that nickname is far from appropriate. So if that's what bothers you about my tweet, I apologize if you thought I was endorsing that particular sentiment. And of course, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. As someone who frequently confronts criticism and negative reviews for my own work, I mistakenly assumed you had a thick skin and likely didn't search for secondhand replies on the internet that relate to you. He was not tagged in my tweet about him, by the way.
Right.
I don't do that and don't recommend it for anyone who stands behind their work. But telling me to, quote, grow up is a choice, especially when I was clearly being cheeky and especially because of your well-documented track record as a media figure. You've committed documented ratings fraud, a story I followed at the time, as did a lot of people working in news and radio in New England, threw around, quote, FCC rules that don't actually exist while on camera, tried again on camera to get out of consequences for a fender bender, and worked very hard to use your platform to secure a conviction for Karen Reed, even going as far as reporting untrue observations about the testimony, the jury, Brennan's in-court performance, and much more. And then you publicly met the homeowner on whose lawn John O'Keefe died for a meal. If you were interviewing him at that meeting for a story you haven't yet published, I await it eagerly. I was not saying anyone deserves being chased around and called names, but consider whether being better and being an honest, good faith actor might be a path to stuff like that not happening as often. That kind of thing doesn't just occur out of the ether. Have a great night, John. That's what I wrote back.
Good. Measured, detailed, factual.
Yeah. Then I got a bunch of DMs. Your reaction is to throw out false accusations against me and tell me not to read comments you make about me. Am I supposed to go and address each false accusation you made? I recognize that we are on opposite sides in the Reed trial, but I didn't realize the extent of which you actually believe the nonsense spewed out by a group of pathological liars. And then he went on and on and on. He refuted the meal thing that I just believed it after being told it. I actually saw a photo of it. So, a fender bender, I called the police and provided my information, blah, 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 blah.
He wasn't going to, though.
Yeah. And then he said, I overestimated you and did not realize you were one of them. And I said, always happy to hear whatever you have to say about what I might be wrong about. And I'm one of who? Because he said I'm not one of them. I'd love to be a member of some cool social club, but I've never been offered a spot. And then he said he actually wants to have a conversation and just talk, do what you want. Someone flagged your comment on blah, 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 which is why I got it, since we both appeared on Court TV and you do actually work in media. I just wrote back, sure. Like I was done. But then I kept seeing these notifications in my DMs and I'm like, I don't want to open them. And you were like, we should have him on the show and talk to him. And I was like, that would mean I would have to open this. And I would talk, if I saw John Depetro on the street, I would 100% talk to him. I am not I'm open to talking to anybody. I was on TV with Kevin Lanahan last night, and I know has had serious illnesses. I met him in person, and we were in Canton. He was perfectly nice. We shook hands before and after our thing on TV. Like, this is what he does. He's anti-Karen Reed. He wrote a book about it. And it's his job, to go on media and talk about it. This is what Depetro does. It's his job to go on media and talk about it. It is my right as a citizen of the United States and as a fellow media person to criticize his tactics. And it is also my right to talk to him or not talk to him. He wants to talk on the phone. You think I should. So
I think I said this. I think that if you're going to talk to Depetro, because he's going to go and put his little spin on it, that you need to tell him that you want it recorded and you need to record it and you need to release that recording so that there's no confusion.
That's not really my deal. Like I'm fine having private conversations with people that are, and I'm sure.
But it wouldn't be private.
Yeah. I'm sure that we talk though and it would be benign and fine, but I'm also not interested in debating with him.
That's what he wants.
This is the thing. There are some people, and say what you want about Kevin Lanahan. You know how you get a vibe that someone is like, they believe they're acting in good faith, right? I don't know if Lanahan believes he's acting, but he certainly, it seems to me, from my few encounters with him, that he believes what he's saying and he believes he's acting in good faith. That is not the impression that John Depetro gives, because he says things that are so patently on their face in the moment false, and he weaponizes his platform in a way that is extremely distasteful, and he criticizes Turtleboy for things that he then does. Like, you can't, it's like you can't anoint yourself a hero in a story when you're fallible. One of the things that really bothers me about a lot of these people, and this is why, I'm not a big fan of law tubers. Like, I don't watch Nurse Kim. I don't watch Melanie Little. I sort of get clips when they're...
You get it all from me.
But I do... One of the things I like about Nurse Kim in particular is that Nurse Kim will say when she doesn't know something. She'll be like, she's very open about it. She knows what she doesn't know. She knows what she does know. She knows what she thinks.
Sure.
And a lot of people in this space, even people I don't agree with, are like that. They believe they're acting in good faith, and I just don't think that a conversation with him would be him saying, I believe I'm acting in good faith here, but maybe it would be, but I haven't worked up to it yet.
I think people get their talking points from the leaders, and they do whatever they can to get those talking points out. Yeah, John Depetro reminds me of. Do you know Scott Jennings?
No.
He's a GOP strategist and pundit, and he has his own podcast. He's always on CNN, on the late night shows where they.
I'd probably know him by sight. Then is what you're saying.
You would. He has gone. He went from being this sort of anti-Trump to being this mega Trump supporter. And he literally just goes on Abby Phillips' show every night and he walks out these talking points, and they all sound like talking points, and they go against, he contradicts himself in the moment. He does circular reasoning and whataboutism, and it's all the tactics of that Kellyanne Conway taught everyone in this party. Right.
And I'll say it's like Marjorie Taylor Greene has said some insane shit since she's come on the political scene. She sent some insanely racist shit, some insanely anti-Semitic shit. She talked about Jewish space lasers. She believes anti-trans. She believes that people are controlling the weather. She has said some insane things. I believe that she believes the things she is saying. I didn't used to believe that about her. I believe it now.
Yes.
Because even though I know it's a tactic, even though I know she's probably making her own political moves, she is willing to say, I said those things and I believe some of them still and I don't believe other things still. It's like the fallibility is important to me.
It's Megyn Kelly saying that 15-year-old girls are
fair game.
Not 8-year-old girls. They are young women who are fair game, and that you're not a pedophile.
That's not exactly what she said, but it's certainly how it came out. That's how it.
But that's my point. My point is that she went on her program and justified. Yeah. Because that's what she was told to do. She doesn't believe that. Megyn Kelly was part of the lawsuit against Fox News for
sexual harassment.
She doesn't believe it herself. Yeah. So why is she parroting these fucked up talking points about children? Yeah. It's the same thing that Depetro does.
I mean, you get, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, when there's an issue, operatives, comms people get a memo. Yes. That's and we it's funny because we've seen it when people give congressional testimony. We've seen the memo, the notes. Sometimes it'll be it's talk about this, focus on this person's eyelash. It'll say something stupid it's not genuine. And I don't know what John Depetro's personal life is like. I don't know how he thinks. All I know is what I have seen and read that he has written. I have seen on his videos and have seen him on Court TV and have seen him on social media. And it does not seem like a genuine actor. And it's you can, and it's funny because I'm not in whatever cult that people think Turtleboy has going on. Right. But I do know he certainly has obfuscated publicly. He certainly has whatever. And he also has said why he's obfuscating publicly. It's not a good look, but it's a look he fully embraces. And he's like, I'm a fucking douchebag. Sometimes I am revenge is my number one motivator. So it's even if you hate him, you have to admire the fact that he owns his character and he owns.
And that is what I'm asking for from politicians and pundits and folks like John Depetro. I'm asking for honesty about who they truly are and what they truly want. Yeah. And that shouldn't be that difficult.
I could be wrong. Maybe I'll talk to him and he'll be super nice.
I mean, you might be wrong, but I've seen videos of him off the cuff where he is just talking to people like on the steps of the courthouse, and he's a complete DB, and that's my opinion. But, like a talking point, basically, if you ask somebody, well, why did Donald Trump call that reporter a piggy? Why did he say quiet piggy? And the answer out of 17 people's mouths will be, he's just really upset that we're not focusing on affordability.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
why he called her a piggy. He's
Yeah.
just, it has nothing to do with how much, what he thinks about women. It's that he wants us to focus on affordability and not the Epstein files. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right, we have gone off on so many tangents today.
I know. But let me just say one last thing about Depetro.
Yes, please.
I don't ever look for my mentions of myself on social media. And I would just advise somebody who's in the media, who's put themselves in the public spotlight, which I have. I mean, I have several podcasts. I've written books. I work in the media by day. If you look at the criticisms of my main podcast, Crime Writers On, if there's negative comments, a lot of them are about me. It's about the way I laugh, how I lead the show, blah, blah, blah. 10 years ago, I used to look at that and be like, man, should I be doing something differently? And then I've come to realize if you're not ruffling people, then you're not doing it right usually. Or if there are people who really love you and there are people who really hate you, like you're probably like onto something, right? But like,
right.
I have sort of learned that like if you put yourself in the position to be a public person, you have to be able to take it. You have to. You have to be able to have someone say that you're ugly, have someone say that you're stupid, have someone say that you don't know what you're talking about or that you're lying. You have to, and you just have to be able to water off a duck and keep doing what you're doing if you believe in what you're doing. And the advice I would give to Depetro is if he wants to stay doing the kind of work he's doing, being the kind of personality that he monetizes being, don't look for comments about yourself when you're not tagged in them, especially. It does not lead anywhere good other than other people talking about you on their podcasts.
No, ask Mandy Matney how she had to deal with so many comments about vocal fry when she was trying to tell the truth about Alec Murdaugh.
Fun fact, Nancy Mace used to own Fitz News.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I just learned that. Anyway.
Whoa.
Digression.
Okay. All right, I think it is time to get into this complaint. We're already at an hour right now.
Great.
So we gotta do this. I think we should have maybe just one quick little dance break from Ruby before we get going.
Yes.
We're gonna do the Karen Reed complaint, right, Rubes? She's like, can I please go back to sleep?
She's like 40 how many pages?
Okay.
Dog break.
Dog break. I want to say this right off the top. I love the way whoever wrote this, I'm assuming it was Alan Jackson or someone. It might have been her civil attorney, like her lead civil attorneys. I love the way, as a writer myself, how they broke this down and told this story.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I think everybody needs to understand right off the top is that Karen Reed is civilly suing. She is the plaintiff against Michael Proctor, Yuri Bukhenik, Brian Tully.
In their personal
Brian
capacities
Higgins,
as citizens, not cops.
in their personal capacity as citizens. That's the footnote on the first page. Or is it the footnote on the first page?
It's right there.
No, it doesn't. It's right there. It's right on the top of who she's listed. And then Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, and as I said, Brian Higgins. So she's suing all of these people, and this is just sort of the whole thing. She's suing all of these people because they trampled on her constitutional rights. She is alleging that they were all involved in a cover-up to put charges of murder on her and send her away to jail when they themselves, some of them, were a party to what actually happened to John O'Keefe. And so the way that this is broken down is basically the complaint is the first section. So they tell you, Karen tells you what she thinks happened and how it happened. And then it's broken down. Yes, Ruby. And then it's broken down into each person that she names and what they did wrong with specific examples and which rights of hers they violated. And then it sort of ends with, and here are all the things they did to violate my rights. So here are all my rights that were violated. And then finally, it's what she's asking for.
Right.
In damages.
Right. And we should say the Massachusetts State Police and Canton Police Departments will be added to this lawsuit, but they have to be they have to go through
That's the
presentment
footnote.
first. So
Right.
yes, the answer is yes. And all these sections, the paragraphs therein are very well organized, very neat,
Yes.
and there are some nuggets hidden in them for sure.
For sure. So basically, the theory is very similar to our theory of what happened. I'm going to try to do a Cliff Notes version of it here, but basically, Karen and John were out at C.F. McCarthy's and the waterfall. Everyone was drinking. Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt and Jen McCabe, and several others were all out there drinking with them. Jen McCabe invited them back to the Alberts' home, Brian Albert's home at 34 Fairview, to sort of keep the party going. Karen was never really convinced that they were welcome there. She and John drove over to the house. He said he was going to go inside and check things out. She waited. She watched him walk up to the door, one of two doors at the front of the house. There were three doors at the front of the house. Notable. She watched him walk up to the doors. He went into either the house or the garage. She waited. He didn't come out. She left him there because she thought that he had decided to stay and that she wasn't welcome, maybe. Plus, keep in mind, they were all drunk. And then what transpired inside the house was that John got into an altercation, and one of my notes says that Brian Albert was, they believe Brian Albert was the one who got into an altercation with. We don't know that for sure. They may have evidence of it. Gets into an altercation. At some point, he falls backward and hits his head on a hard surface that causes a counter-coup injury to the back of his head, blunt force trauma. Contra-coup, sorry. I always say counter-coup.
I practiced it during the trial.
Thank you. Rebecca fact checks me in real time, and I appreciate it.
I also vibe check you in real time sometimes.
Yeah, you do sometimes. And then at some point, Chloe, the German Shepherd, who was Brian Albert's dog, attacked, probably to protect her owners. And that's how John got the dog bites on his arm. They are specifically saying that John was punched in the face in this complaint, which I find interesting. And at some point, they all decided, this is sort of how they laid it out in the complaint. All of these people, most of these people were law enforcement, so they knew the kind of trouble they were going to be in if they didn't do something about this. And that's why they didn't call 911. They decided to cover it up, and they decided to pin it on Karen Reed. And so at that point, that's when the planning actually began. And they allege in this complaint that Matt McCabe may have helped move John O'Keefe's body, which I found interesting.
Well, do you know what paragraph that's in approximately? Sorry, I got to put my readers on because I am blind.
I do not, but I have it in my notes once we get to Matt McCabe, because I broke down what they all did.
Yeah.
So KR alleges he may have assisted in moving JOK's body and or concealing evidence. We know that they all tried to conceal evidence. Another thing that was mentioned in this complaint is that Nicole may have also destroyed evidence. To me, so I want to make this clear to the audience. What's happening in this complaint is they are making these very specific allegations against these people, which means they either have the evidence to back it up, or they are expecting to get the evidence in discovery and depositions.
Yes.
In order to prove their case.
Or they know for sure that they can convince a jury that it's more likely this happened than not, which is the standard in a civil case. One of the things that's interesting to me about this complaint is it does what I have always done, which is separates out the police misconduct from whatever happened at the house.
Yes.
I
absolutely.
really appreciate that because I have always thought, long thought, have said it on TV, have said it here, that Proctor did not start this thinking that any Alberts were involved. I really think that's true. I just think this is the kind of cop he was. I got a whiff of this is what's happened, and now I'm going to make sure that that person goes down for it by doing all sorts of stuff to make it a slam dunk. Maybe at some point he became aware or began to suspect or whatever that there was something really wrong here. It doesn't matter. To me, that doesn't even matter how much he was involved. But the bottom line is They wanted him to investigate the case because they knew he would believe them when they said certain things, and that's exactly what happened. So whether or not he was complicit in the actual post-murder stuff doesn't matter, and I'm very glad they separated it out because it is very hard for people to buy a cop participating in a conspiracy like this with non-cops. Well, I mean, Albert was a cop.
And one of the arguments has always been, well, how could all these people be in this together and nobody's broken and blah, blah, blah. And I think that they break it down pretty well here, how this happened. But a couple of things that they keep emphasizing throughout the 46 pages is that John was punched and knocked backwards and that his injuries are completely inconsistent with a car accident, which what I think was proven at trial. He had no broken bones or impact injuries below the neck. The medical examiner later confirmed his injuries did not match being struck by a vehicle, and that the autopsy found no evidence he was hit by a car. The injuries are consistent. I think they focus on the injuries that are consistent with a physical struggle and a dog attack because they make the point to say the way that John looked when he was found, the cops should have been asking a lot of more questions about an altercation and a dog attack and not a car accident. They should have gone inside that house. They should have gone inside the garage. They should have looked for physical evidence. They should have, I thought this was a brilliant point. They said the cops should have gone inside, talked to all of the witnesses from the party and asked them to see if they had any bruises on their body, asked them to see their cell phones, asked them to see if their knuckles had any bruises like Colin Alberts did. And they didn't do any of that stuff. So another part, let's go back, I guess, to their theory of the case. So basically, Karen leaves him there. There's an altercation. They put his body on the lawn.
At some point, it says, at some point.
They put the Ford Edge out where his body is later found. And I think that they're saying basically to hide whatever was happening from the other cameras in the neighborhood, probably. From seeing what was happening to his body or that it was being moved. And then basically at 5 o'clock in the morning, Karen wakes up and she doesn't know, John's not home. So she calls Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe says, come to my house. And this was a point that I found incredibly interesting. In the complaint, they make a point to say, Jen McCabe tells her to come to her house. Once Karen gets to Jen McCabe's house, she then tells her to go back to John's house instead of going to 34 Fairview.
After Carrie arrives,
After Carrie arrives. And they are alleging it's because Jen was trying to buy the house defendants, more time to deal with John's body at 5 a.m. in the morning. So there are just moments like that where I'm like, yes, absolutely. We will touch on later what happened with Higgins leaving the house and the butt dials and things like that. But how did you feel about their theory of like what happened that night?
Well, I felt good about it because it's matched up with my theory that I have held for a very long time. One of the challenges that, you get when you put something like this out there is people saying, well, this isn't what they've been saying the whole time. Here's the thing. They don't fucking know. They didn't know what happened because Karen wasn't there. They weren't there. But over time, things have come to light that have created a clearer puzzle. One of the things that was really notable to me in paragraph 32 was it says, Brian and Nicole Albert's son, Brian Albert Jr., and his friends were already at the house for Brian Jr.'s birthday. In addition, Colin Albert, Brian Albert's nephew, was present. They just call him out. Yeah. Sort of. I mean, they don't mention Chris and Julie. They call him out specifically. Yes. I think that they wanted to include his name here for reasons, but I don't know what those reasons are specifically. But yeah, I believe that something happened. I believe that they had an initial plan to explain it away. I think that they're very fucking lucky Karen Reed drove away. I think that was probably a surprise to them that she drove away and didn't come back.
And they used it.
If she had come back, they probably would have said, we don't know where we thought he left with you or whatever. They had a plan initially to do something, to dispose of his body or to put it on the lawn and say it was hit by a plow or something. And her becoming panicked and her affect at the scene and everything that happened at the scene is the reason why they all got together again with Julie and Chris Albert at the house and then called the cops back over. And that is the first time the story of could I have hit him comes into play. It never came into play before that. She didn't say it on video. She didn't say it, period, because Nuttall says he heard it through the ambulance door, which was not true. It's also inconsistent with what he had said before. But she didn't say it. And they invented her having said that. And I think that they sort of honestly like incepted that idea in her head. Like, and she owns it now because she has said, like, I said something like, could I have hit him? Right. Like, and which, by the way, who cares if she said it or not? But that's the first time it kind of comes up. I believe that core group of people decided in that meeting that Karen was the perp, that she was going to be the perp. Right. And I've believed for a long time, not the whole time, but for a long time, that there were people in the house who did not know what happened.
Yes. I was just about to say that.
Something happened in the garage. I think the garage is just so obvious as a potential spot for this to happen. Something happened just after 12:20, not later. Any phone movements after that are attempts, in my opinion, to obfuscate, turn airplane mode, do whatever, take it upstairs. Because there's so many weird stories that come in at this point in their timeline, and their stories better match the phone movements than they do reality. Because remember, their stories are, at one point, Higgins and Albert went upstairs to look at photos. Later, when they realized that the prosecution was going to blame those movements on Karen Reed and her driving or whatever, the story changed to, we went to the family room to look at photos, and the whole specter of them moving upstairs at all was gone. Yep. So my whole point about the McAlberts is, any one of these things taken by themselves mean nothing. It's them being combined together and the consistency of lie telling. There may be inconsistency in their stories, but there's consistency in one thing, and it is that they all have changed their stories. They have all lied. And the other thing that I just want to say briefly is that think about the risk of filing a suit like this. There are several kinds of civil suits. There's the kind where a very powerful person uses that tool to crush a person to get what they want. This is what happened in the case of NHPR. A very moneyed guy sued the station to take down a story. We defended ourselves. We won, but I believe he believed we wouldn't have the resources to fight.
Right.
There are class action suits where a lot of people have been harmed. It gets bundled together and lawyers make a lot of money or whatever. There are suits about injuries and claims where a person sues McDonald's or sues another driver or whatever, but ultimately it's like an insurer that pays out. Then there are these kinds of claims. Police departments aside, Karen Reed and these folks are not on equal footing. They're not rich, but they also haven't lost everything. I mean, they will say they have, but she's lost her job, she's lost her car, she's lost her livelihood,
reputation,
lost her
everything.
And she is not going for there's a huge risk here because she's going to be as exposed as they are. Yes. It is very telling to me that she is willing to continue this and take this risk to file this actual lawsuit in actual court, knowing and being told everything that's going to happen to her after she does. And she did it anyway. Yes. And that tells me that there is something here, for real.
Yes. Well, they have something. I mean, there's so much that we still don't know. We're going to find out a lot from these sidebars, and we're probably going to understand a little bit more about what they have here.
Remember they said in the opening arguments, they had evidence that his body was moved, medical evidence that his body was moved. I believe they're talking about livor mortis. That is the most likely thing they're talking about. That's when blood pools when you're in a certain position and stays that way, even if you're moved. This happened in the Heyman Lee case. Well,
it was brought up, though, in the trial.
Briefly.
You remember that?
Very briefly.
But that's my point.
But they focused on the car to get her off. But they have evidence that his body was moved that they did not introduce.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
They have evidence from 34 Fairview that they were not allowed to introduce, including testing, photos,
carpets, everything.
Expert analysis of things. They have stuff with Alan Jackson yelling out the window, and it's so obvious that they would have heard anything happening on the lawn. Yep. I think the carpet is a red herring. I think she took it and stored it, but I think I don't think that matters. And
I think she was just covering all her bases by doing that.
I would. If I had the resources, I would.
With these people?
Yeah, and John died in the garage. He was sitting in there. He was either dying or mortally wounded in the garage.
I think he was sitting. Yeah, for sure.
And they went on with their night. They waited until all these other people left, and then they
left.
Talked as a group. And it's like, Jen, you take these people out of here. We'll talk when you get home.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
But at some point, they all agreed to say he never came inside the house.
Yeah, at the donut time.
And I think that was the first step. That was the first step to say, we're in this together and we're all going to say the same thing. So that was Karen's theory of what happened. But let's get into Canton PD MSP misconduct allegations, which there are quite
very specific about Proctor stuff. Very specific.
Oh, yes.
Planting evidence and so forth.
Yeah. So basically, the complaint breaks down. I think of Michael Proctor as sort of the umbrella. Even though Yuri Bukhenik and Brian Tully were above him, he's sort of the umbrella because he has such close ties to Canton and all the people in Canton. Everybody else, I feel like, was protecting Proctor, or at least protecting the blue line. So as soon as he began investigating, allegedly, he decided that Karen was the culprit, and that the people in the house weren't going to, quote unquote, get any shit for this, and that Albert's a Boston cop, and let's make the case cut and dry. Basically, within 16 hours of when the body was found is when he decided it was Karen, and within 72 hours, she had been arrested and the Lexus had been taken into custody. So the failure will always be that they never treated 34 Fairview inside the house and the garage as a crime scene. That's where this started to fall apart. And I think it was on purpose. That's my opinion, obviously. But no forensic team was brought into the house in the first hours or days even, ever, to find DNA, to question witnesses for physical issues like, bruises and, like you said, knuckle bruises, anything like that. How about the broken cocktail glass? They didn't even compare glasses that were inside the house,
Right.
They never collected no swabs for blood, no DNA, no fingerprints.
Was there a broken cocktail glass there? I mean, it's like there's just so many things that we just don't know about the veracity of the evidence because so much stuff was put there afterwards. And we know it was because they searched the area that day and they found nothing. And then later they found things that were this big.
Yes. So they didn't test anything. They didn't do any analysis of Chloe. They didn't seize any of the clothing or the phones from anyone that was in that house that night. And I'm talking even... So the way that I understand it, like, let's say there's a house party. Somebody dies at the house party. Every single person that's at that house party would be there. They would ask for their clothes. They would ask for their phones. You know what I mean? Like, it would be a full-on investigation of every single person that was there that night. And they did none of it. And on top of that, they did a bunch of superficial interviews that were sort of putting the focus back on Karen Reed. These interviews were not recorded, and most of the time they were at someone like a family friend's house, or in Brian Higgins' case, his lawyer's house. And they were all giving like inconsistent, accounts of what happened, and the investigators didn't take any consideration. They didn't put any weight on these interviews. It was almost like they were checking off a box. One of the examples they listed in the complaint, let me pull it up really quick. Jen McCabe said she went straight home after finding the body, but later her GPS data on her phone, and it was later uncovered by the defense, showed she actually returned to 34 Fairview the next day, and she had denied that already under oath. They had to establish that in the second trial, that she went back there with Carrie Roberts the next day. She had lied numerous times.
And that they stopped by Lank's house.
Yes.
So the going to Lank's house, stopping at 34 Fairview on the way to going to Lank's house is incriminating because it's like,
yes,
why stop there? What do you need there? What do you
And then go to 34 Fairview.
No, and then go to Lank's. That's what they uncovered at trial.
Oh, right. That was the other way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many instances of that, and if the defense hadn't been good at their jobs, probably most of this stuff wouldn't have come out. But they were so diligent in trying to get to the bottom of this.
If the feds hadn't investigated, most of this stuff wouldn't have come out either.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Karen's accusing both the house group and Michael Proctor of, this is a big one for me, and I want to know what they have to back this up or what they expect to find. They are accusing the House defendants and Michael Proctor of tampering with or planting evidence. They actually say that Michael Proctor planted evidence on O'Keefe's clothing and on the Lexus to suggest a collision despite medical evidence to the contrary. What do you think they have to back that up? Or what do you think they're expecting to have to back that up?
I think we saw it. I mean, remember, all a jury has to think is it's more likely than not. We saw it. No chain of custody. Clothing was in his possession for a long time, was not logged until you don't have to prove it.
I know, but
all you have to prove is that it's more likely than not. Because remember, there's no actual documentation of anything on his clothes except for stuff in the envelope with his clothes. Right. So, that combined with all these other things, the idea is more likely than not that he did this. Nicholas Barros's report is going to come into play here. More likely or not. The cocktail piece of glass on the bumper after they got back to the police station, is it more likely or not that was put there afterwards or that it was put there before and then survived several car trips and a tow truck trip back to Canton? Is it more likely or not that it was put there after? Is it more likely or not that the hair was put there after? Those are the questions they're going to be asking. They don't need proof. They just need to ask that.
Yeah.
They just need enough. And I think that we saw at the trial there is enough because the jury in the criminal trial believed there was enough. The juror, Charles, said it was either guilt or conspiracy. He didn't say it was either guilt or not guilt, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think video is going to play a big part of this trial as well, the civil trial. They have so much to rely on video-wise. And then... actually, and tech-wise, too. So Brian Albert and Brian Higgins destroying their phones.
So damning.
And then I've always known these facts, but then reading them in the way that they told this story, and I really, really want to encourage our viewers to either go read the complaint or listen to me read the complaint to you. The way they tell this story, it makes absolute sense to me, finally. At 2:22 a.m., is when all of those quote-unquote butt dials were going back and forth between Higgins and Brian Albert. 5 minutes later is when Jen McCabe did the Google search, Hosslung to dying cold.
That's right.
The timing of it all, it just lays out that they're all coordinating. They're all working together, the amount of physical evidence that was manipulated or just disappeared, including video footage, inverted video footage, cell phones, like
library.
For instance, the library footage, John's missing shoe, it was later found by a private citizen, not police, right? And then the way that they lay it out when John's body is found, I'm still very upset with Bev Cannoni for not allowing the defense to bring in their expert witness to talk about police procedure. I think the case would have been over with that witness. You wouldn't even have to go through the medical examiner. You wouldn't have to go through anything else because that person would have told the jury that when they got to that crime scene, when the police got to that crime scene and they saw John out there without a coat, without a shoe, without a hat, the first thing they would be doing is trying to figure out where those things are. And more than likely, they would have been inside the house because John probably took his coat off when he went into the house. And nobody looked for it. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm obviously not a lawyer. I am obviously not a police officer. But if I saw a guy lying in the snow with no coat on and no shoe on and no hat on, I'd be like, where are those things and why is he here?
Right.
And the first place I would have looked would have been inside that house. So... anyway, so misconduct allegations go on, collusion and leaks. Michael Proctor secretly coordinated with the Alberts through back channels. That's literally what they say. He was communicating with Courtney, his sister, and she was coordinating or communicating with Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law. This is where the thank you gift comes in. A lot of this stuff that Proctor was doing, he was doing it on his personal phone. So I'm hoping we're going to see those messages as well when we finally get access to all the messages on Michael Proctor's phone. And that's not to say that has nothing to do with how he was actually communicating about Karen to his buddies and his supervisors and, whack job cunt and looking for nudes and he hopes she kills herself and yada yada. And then I think the last 2 points that they made in this complaint about the misconduct and the police misconduct is that the rush to judgment. Not only did they not do a proper crime scene investigation, they also were looking for someone to put it on within 16 to 72 hours. And they found somebody. And I think they obviously used the fact that Karen was drunk to pin this on her.
Yeah.
And that sucks. That's her fault for being drunk, but...
Yeah, the texts are so damning. They're so damning. And there are more that we haven't seen, right?
Yes.
So, and now we also have personal phone stuff and...
Sidebahs.
Email stuff. We have so much stuff. I would encourage folks, and I will find the timestamp so you can put it in the show notes, to watch. To me, when I first got into this, following this case, I didn't know what happened. Like, part of me was like, they were hiding something in the house. Maybe they just had a pile of Coke on the freaking coffee table. That's when, and I didn't know when I hadn't seen any of when I didn't know anything. And the Boston Globe interviewed me about why people found it interesting. I knew about the federal investigation, so I was like, that's weird. It's very weird that that's kind of coming into the trial. But I remember getting off the interview and saying to the producer, who I knew a little bit, isn't it possible they just were hiding something else in the house, like a big pile of Coke? And the producer was like, 100% possible. My moment where, I thought that something else happened before this moment, but the moment where I was like, this is the most damning thing I have seen, was when in trial 1, when Brian Higgins was being examined by the defense, and he was asked that question about throwing away his phone.
Yeah.
In the 2 dumpsters.
Yeah.
He looked like he wanted to die. Like,
well, the butt dials too. Yeah.
He was so deeply uncomfortable. He didn't go immediately with, oh, yeah. That's the way I throw away my phones because I'm a security freak because I work for the DEA. And like, that's an easy fucking answer to give. I just made that up on the spot.
Yeah.
I've never thought that before. I literally just made that up on the spot. Like, I know it might look weird, but that's how I throw away my phones because I work for the DEA. I'm paranoid. You might be paranoid too if you work for the DEA. So
that's
it might seem extreme, but that's what I do.
Reason. He didn't go there. He went for something complicated. And last night... He
went for this. Like, not exactly, but like whatever his facial expression was, it had the equivalent of deer in headlights. And to me, I was like... when you can't make up a lie or you can't say something on the spot and you're really struggling, it's just so clear that he didn't expect to be caught and didn't expect that to come up, which means it's important.
Last night when I was listening to you on Court TV and Lanahan was saying, "Oh, there's a reasonable explanation for all of these things." He put it in the trash and it went in the dumpster because there was no place for him to drop his trash and blah, blah, blah.
There's no trash pickup in Sandwich, which, by the way, it's just like my town. There's no municipal trash pickup in Sandwich, but you have a company come and do it. And there's like 18 companies online in Sandwich, Massachusetts. He either does that or he takes his trash to the dump.
The base.
Like every other fucking citizen of a maybe he takes his trash to the base and throws in the dumpsters. That's easier. Maybe because we know he buys his booze there, right? So maybe that's what he does. But he didn't say that. He didn't say, "Oh, that's where I take all of my trash." He didn't say that.
Nope.
Lanahan pulled that out of I thought of it later, dumb, and somebody maybe said that to him later. Like he pulled that out of a story that somebody on Twitter made up later, or that one of them. You know what I mean? He would have said that in the moment. Yeah.
Yes. And the idea that folks who are anti-Karen Read will continue to say to this day that 22 seconds is not long enough to have a phone conversation with somebody. And that's between Brian and Brian. Because there was that 22-second call while Brian was supposedly having sex with Nicole and his butt hit the phone and called Brian, whatever. 22 seconds is plenty of time to have a conversation, especially if it's something like, I just got the bag out of the car, I'm heading home.
In fact, I have an idea. Let's see how much we can say in 22 seconds. I'm going to set my timer right now.
Thank you. Let me know when to go because I have something else I want to talk about.
Okay.
Ready? Yeah.
Go. So,
Go.
Mel, one of the things I'm thinking about is what should we do with this body?
So one of the things I'm thinking about is that I have this bag in the back of my car and I'm going to grab it. I'm going to bring it to the house and it's got all these Faraday cases in it so we can deal with that situation before we deal with the body. Is that cool?
Make sure you tell Jen to look up the hypothermia stuff so we can see if that's doable. Okay, that's it.
Cool. We just plotted a murder.
We just got a lot done in 22 seconds.
So the reason I brought up the bag, though, is because I heard a story yesterday that the feds removed some sort of like large duffel bag, hockey bag, something along the lines, from a friend of Michael Proctor. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
But-
I think the bag. Okay, so let me tell you what I would say if asked about if they knew about the bag before and they'd brought Higgins in the second trial and asked him about it. Ask me about what were you moving that night? Ask me that question. I'll tell you. I'll show you the lie I can make up on the spot.
Okay, what were you moving the night that you pulled that bag out of the car in the parking lot of the Canton PD?
Well, as you know, I had just come from a funeral in New York, and that was my overnight bag. I switched cars after I got back, so that was just my overnight bag that I planned to bring home so I could do my laundry.
It was
How
really
easy
large.
is that? How easy is that?
Yeah.
How easy is that? And
But
it's
the
like
thing is, nobody asked him that question because he didn't testify in the second trial.
because that video was never given to the defense until October.
Until the second trial.
And it's like that was withheld from them for what, 3 years?
Yeah.
That's why they didn't know to ask that question because they never saw it. And it was in the custody and control of the Canton Police Department. It was. Him walking through that, I think that video is haunting. Him walking into
He's
that
trying
building.
to hide his face and he goes
walking
into the
into
comms
dispatch,
room for a minute.
talking to Good. He's talking to Good in there.
Yep.
There's so many places the mind can go. Like, was he telling Good, listen, there's probably going to be a call. There's going to be a call coming in from 34 Fairview. Like, just FYI, I'm working on it. Whatever. Because he had relationships with all these, like, close relationships with these guys.
Yes.
He was like best friends
Especially
with Berkey.
Kevin Albert.
And, the idea that none of these guys can get their shit together to tell even a good lie that makes sense in the moment.
They don't need to. They don't care. They know that they have the backing of the police. It doesn't have to be that good.
Right. I'm telling you, that overnight bag thing it was exactly what I would have said. But he would have been like, what? Because if they didn't have if they asked him that question without showing the video, he would have lied about having done it because he lied and said he didn't call anybody from the police station until they had the video. If he was in the stand again, he would have had to make up a story about why he didn't say that the other time. And he would have had time. But imagine if they'd asked him just like the phone question spontaneously. So if there were evidence that you had taken, did you take a bag out of one car and put it in another when you visited the Canton Police Station? That would have been an interesting moment because just like the phone thing, I bet he would have been somewhat taken aback.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot that happened. And I think that any jury that sees this information, and in this case, they're going to not only see this entire story laid out for them, they are going to actually see most of the evidence to back this up. And I don't think that there's any way around this for the defendants. So speaking of the defendants, I want to break down really quickly. Sorry, did you have something else you wanted to say?
No, I was just thinking about the chalks they're going to be able to bring in this time. They weren't able to bring in a trial. Like if you just could physically see all of the calls, like all these people lined up on one timeline.
Yeah.
Which we've seen online. We've seen that online.
And if they do what we just did with the 22 seconds in the middle of court, obviously, because if a witness gets on the stand and said, yeah, we can't have a conversation in 22 seconds. Oh, really, Alan Jackson? Here, let's have a conversation. I'm gonna put my timer on my phone. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's break down the allegations and the roles everyone played. We're going to go through this kind of briefly because we've talked about a lot of it already. But basically, let's start with Proctor. Gross investigative misconduct, civil rights violations. He steered the investigation toward Karen. He intentionally failed to search 34 Fairview to gather evidence. He leaked information to the McAlberts. Yeah, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I'm just grabbing my root beer. Keep going.
Okay. Root beer. He planted false evidence. He had all those lewd and accusatory and derogatory messages about Karen. He decided on Karen's guilt immediately to the exclusion of other people, which I think is a big problem. His actions violated her constitutional rights by fabricating evidence and causing her wrongful arrest. So I want to read one thing that's directly from the complaint. So if you wouldn't mind bearing with me, it's not very long, but it's wordy. So this is directly from the complaint about Proctor and Bukhenik. Quote, Proctor and Bukhenik initially interviewed the McCabe's and Brian Albert on January 29th at the McCabe's home at 12 Country Lane in Canton, at which time they again falsely stated that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Alberts' home. Bukhenik and Proctor did not interview Nicole Albert and Brian Higgins until February 3rd, 2022, and did not interview Chris and Julie Albert until February 10th, nearly 2 weeks after Mr. O'Keefe's death, and more than a week after Miss Reed was arrested and charged. Before both interviews, the McCabe's and Alberts continued to coordinate their stories as evidenced in group texts. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully likewise failed to conduct a meaningful investigation into Higgins' involvement. When Proctor and Bukhenik interviewed Higgins on February 3rd, Higgins presented the troopers with a select set of self-curated texts between himself and Miss Reed. They learned that Higgins and Miss Reed had been exchanging flirtatious texts and that Higgins reported at least one instance in which Miss Reed and Higgins had kissed while at Mr. O'Keefe's house mere weeks before his death. I wanted to read that to give the audience an idea of how this is laid out and the story that they're telling. But I also wanted to talk about the fact that they waited to interview these people until after Karen was arrested for a murder at their house.
Yes, because they're bolstering a case they've already decided that they made. That's the thumb on the scales part.
Yeah.
Because that's where you can go to Jen McCabe and say, listen, we arrested her. She did this.
Mm-hmm.
So what did she say when you guys got there and found whatever? And Jen McCabe is able to say, all right, they got her. So I'm just going to say more.
Well, and more than we know that Karen was saying, we know this because the niece testified to it and because she had said it herself. Do you think I hit him with the car? Do you think do you think maybe I did this? And Jen just twisted it. She tweaked it a little bit.
She didn't do that till way later though, like way later.
No.
The I hit him came way later. Like a lot of this stuff that came, these details came when the federal documents came out, when people realized the feds were investigating,
Grand
and a tranche
juries.
of documents came out. They were questioned by the grand jury, and they were like, shit, we need to come up with reasons for this, and this. I mean, that's like the fucking Jeep came into play then. Like,
oh yeah,
I think like all of these things. Oh, they didn't interview Lucky Loughran until, even though they were told to interview him, they didn't interview him until after Turtleboy reported on him. But these folks, everything is backward. Everything is.
They made everything fit.
Yes. It's never like, you know what? I don't remember that. Like, that is what, I mean, every Innocence Project lawyer will tell you that a hallmark of a factually innocent person is how many times they say they don't remember things because they weren't there or because they don't have the knowledge or they say, I don't know. Now, granted, I'm sure there are people who just say that because they're lying, but the liars come up with stories to fill those holes. The truth tellers, I don't fucking remember. I mean, people will say, you remember what you did because that was the day you heard your stepfather died, right? So this is for me like 6-7 years ago. I don't remember anything about that day. All I remember is the phone call with my mom and her saying, like, he went very quietly. I looked up from reading the paper and he was dead. And I don't remember anything. Yeah. If I committed a crime on that day, I might remember the crime, but I wouldn't remember anything around it. Or someone next to me, you know what I mean? Like, there have been things that have happened to me in my life. There have been things that have happened in my life that are bad. And I only remembered those moments. I don't remember anything around those moments. And these folks they made a timeline on purpose so that they would be able to say they remembered.
Yep.
And
that's
then they
part of how
changed
Jen
a bunch of
coordinated.
shit. Yeah, and then they changed a bunch of shit about that timeline because it didn't fit when they found out the feds were investigating.
Yep. Okay, going back to our list of allegations. The next one is Bukhenik. He obviously was Michael Proctor's supervisor. He knew what Michael Proctor was doing. He did nothing to stop it. Sorry, my phone is ringing. He's also accused of failing to ensure a proper impartial investigation. He violated Karen's civil rights and her constitutional rights. Tully, pretty much the same thing. Another supervisor who failed to supervise or rein in a biased investigation. He was presumably aware of the investigative decisions or lack thereof, such as not searching the house or focusing solely on Karen Reed. Like, that's the thing I can't get past with Tully. He knew what they were doing. He was also helping coordinate their testimony, and he's been involved in this since day one. I have a big issue with Tully because he should have known better of anybody that was involved. It seems to me like Michael Proctor and Yuri Bukhenik, this is how they operate. But Brian Tully should have known better, right? Also violating Karen's
Yeah, but he's been working with these guys for a long time. So
I know, but he's a supervisor and he works for the district attorney's office. If he doesn't want a case to fail, he should have done something about this. Because prosecutors aren't supposed to bring cases unless they know that they can win. Right? Yeah. And if Tully works with the district attorney's office and he is a supervisor with the Massachusetts State Police, then he should also be concerned that there's nothing nefarious going on so that his case doesn't fail in front of a grand jury.
Why did you just use the word nefarious?
I'm
Call
sorry.
back.
I meant nefarious.
Call back. Garage.
The garage. Nefarious. Okay, next, Brian Albert. Karen alleges he is the central figure in the altercation. That's what it says in the complaint. He is the central figure in the altercation that led to John's death, and I think she's probably right. Although I've always believed that it was a drunk Higgins who took a swing, and that Brian Albert is the one who stepped in, and at that point, it's when Chloe sort of got involved. That's what I think.
At the very least, he's a central figure because he set up the venue for the altercation, encouraged the altercation. You see him at the door of the waterfall. You see him at the waterfall before they leave, sort of egging Higgins on, getting him. They're doing that, boxing situation.
Which also didn't come out until the second trial, right?
They're talking about Karen Reed. About Karen Reed, and Higgins texts her, whatever. If nothing else, even if Brian didn't throw a punch, Brian certainly orchestrated the circumstances in which a punch was thrown. And Brian owned a dangerous German Shepherd Malinois mix that had bitten people before, a thing he knew. So he didn't think, oh, Higgins is going to hit John O'Keefe. John O'Keefe's going to fall and hit his head, and my dog is going to attack him.
No.
But he certainly thought, potentially, let's get this guy over here so we can have a talking to him and confront him with this shit. Or tell him what Karen did.
Yes. Yep. So Karen is alleging that he is a central figure in the altercation. She's also alleging that he is the central figure in the cover-up.
I believe that 100%.
100%. Chloe was his dog, obviously. Karen's also alleging that Brian Albert is the one who thought of and repositioned the Ford Edge. And obviously moved the body outside, and that he also falsely told law enforcement that John never entered the house. I think he's probably the one who understood better than anybody that in order to start to make the story stick, the very first thing they had to say was they never saw John that night and he never entered the house.
There was a dream team present here in order to do a conspiracy to cover a murder. This is something that Turtleboy said a long time ago that I've always thought about. You have a murder detective and a body in the same place.
Yes.
Who and a federal agent who deals with surveillance or law enforcement stuff, evidence gathering, okay? You have two people who know
uniquely
everything
qualified.
You would need to know in order to stage a scene, to make it look different, to send people looking the other way. They would know what to do with a cell phone. They would know what to do with, moving a body or whatever. They would know. So it's like the fact that their law enforcement doesn't make it, to me, less suspicious. It makes it more suspicious. Because
absolutely. And that's what they're saying in this complaint.
These things would be so hard to pull off unless you understood what you could tell the police that would get them to do a certain thing. Like, he understands that because he was a cop who was told things to get him to do things. And he's also taken lies apart. And he's also, dealt with investigations that involve circumstances very similar to this one, likely. And he's also, by the way, this family has a history of trying to cover up shit they did wrong. I mean,
Yes.
many complaints
Hit and
against
run.
him by
Yep.
police colleagues. The hit and run.
That's another thing that's going to come out, I think, in this case is the other police officers who are going to testify against Brian
That
Albert.
he's violent. Yeah, they were on the witness list and they didn't testify. Because
Yep.
he's a violent guy. He is a violent
Yeah, and he has
guy.
this audacity of confidence because of all of what you just laid out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicole is interesting to me. She's always been interesting because, you know, somebody like she gets described a lot as the person who's always wiping the counters and like cleaning the house,
Yes.
right?
She's like the
And
consummate mom.
It's so think about this. This is a woman who has a face of Irish poverty. Just kidding. That is the funniest thing. That is the funniest damn. If you watch fucking one clip ever of Turtleboy, it's him reacting to that piece of writing. Anyway.
Wait, before we move on to Nicole, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Do you think that Karen's team, so this goes to the destruction of Brian Albert and Brian Higgins' phones. Do you think that Karen's team might be able to compel the phone company or iCloud, like what happened with Michael Proctor, to get that phone communication?
Well, they have new powers now because it's a different kind of case.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know the rules of civil procedure, but I do know that my company, when it was sued, the plaintiff compelled the all that information. The judge agreed, and they had to give up their devices that were connected to a box.
Can you imagine?
That then scraped out everything related to that reporting. And they talk about this in the podcast. This isn't a secret, but like the judge refused to hand all that over to the plaintiff. The judge took it in camera, meaning he reviewed it on his own in his chambers. And then when he issued his ruling, said that these reporters did everything they could possibly do to vet the story. They were overly cautious in some cases, whatever. But yeah, so the judge can, I think that was an order that the judge had to say, yes, do that. I don't know how it works in Massachusetts. I'm not an expert in anything, but I definitely know more about criminal procedure than I do about civil procedure. But the answer is yeah. I mean, you know what I want that no one ever asked for as far as I know, and I don't know if it still exists anymore, is her informatics, her entertainment system, called?
For Lexus.
Infotainment system.
Infotainment.
Fucking Lexus has what you need.
Yeah.
Or had she had a new car.
And so does Apple.
Unless she had changed her settings. So does Google, by the way. Google can answer that question about the search.
Oh, yeah.
Unless she had changed her settings from the default. The default settings in that car, I've done some research and I have a friend who works for a company who would know. The default settings are to have data upload to the Toyota, I guess it is, cloud, like all the data, right? So you have to turn off, in my car, you have to opt into full data. But you are sending data because I have traffic and stuff. That's how traffic, when you use navigation in your car, the way they're getting the traffic information is from other cars sending data. It's not magic and it's not a satellite. So, you're hooked up by default to this data operation. And there are some features you have to opt into and some you have to opt out to. But that Lexus data would know where she went, how she went, if she hit something, if the spinning tires were the result of in reverse or not. Like, I don't know if it would know that specifically, but it would know a lot more than they actually were able to. But they didn't want that. They wanted to interpret the data. That data is not foolproof. It's not infallible, despite what Kevin Lenahan and John Depetro say. It was highly disputed at trial. I don't personally think the key cycle is right. I think the key cycle they're looking at was from later. But there's a lot there that I think Lexus could have told them. And I could be wrong about all of the key cycle stuff, but Lexus would know. Toyota would know. Google would know what time that search happened. The Verizon would be able to pull. They don't have to, they use the phones themselves to scrape everything, but Verizon has a whole fucking lot more that they never pursued because they didn't want to. They wanted to only see screenshots. They wanted to only see limited texts from Higgins that he cherry picked with his friend who worked at the FBI. And what the fuck ever happened to that guy? That's what I want to know.
Right. Exactly.
So
I hope that we get some of that stuff because if if we're able to see text messages or the actual, any kind of data between Higgins and Albert, I think that would sort of blow everything open, because I guarantee you they were talking about this shit on their phones. Okay, Nicole is obviously kind of brief, like you were saying.
Nicole is so
She has
interesting.
she has a strange role. She has like this. She's definitely like the matriarch. She's cleaning around the kitchen.
I don't think
You don't
she's
think
the
so?
matriarch. I think she does. My impression, I don't know what's inside of any marriage, but I do know that she's married to a guy and she lived in his family home. And they had
She reminds me of Maggie Murdoch.
Yeah, they had an aggressive dog. Like her sister, she had a close relationship with her sister, but her sister wasn't allowed to bring the dog over because their dog could eat her dog. They're very protective of their kids. They have, she is very much the model of, I don't know if she worked or not, it doesn't matter, but like she's very much the model of a cop wife. Like,
yes,
his life dictates her
what existence,
they do, right?
Yep.
And I don't know what he's like to be married to. I wouldn't want to find out by marrying him. But his life, his predilections, his patterns, his drinking, his buddies, besides their kids' sports activities, seem to kind of dictate the contours of Nicole's life. Jen and Matt seem to be a little bit more conventional in their independence from one another. That's just the impression I get. Although this whole family is very, very, very tight. Obviously,
incestuous.
They were very tight.
Yeah.
There's obviously been lots of rumors about Brian and Nicole and Chris and Julie and so forth, whether or not they're still together. But Brian, by the way, bought a place in Maine a while back. I've seen the property transfer records. Anyway. She's mysterious. She, if anything, is more the cleanup crew, like the not literal, the figurative and literal. Like, tell them this. I said this. She was an intermediary. I think her phone was used so that Brian could communicate with Jen.
Yes, I agree. She'll get her quote is, we'll get more info tomorrow. I don't want to text about it. That was to, I believe, Jen. And that was
kept it simple. That's what Jen said. She kept it simple.
Yep. And then, but they are accusing her of making misrepresentations to investigators and possibly helping to remove evidence from the house. Yeah. That, to me, that's new information to me. So I'm assuming they have something to back that up, but I don't know.
What if they just hired a contractor to do some painting or cleaning and she was in charge of making that phone call? You know what I mean?
Could be.
They did pull up their basement floor before they moved. We know that.
That is true.
There is some deck stain painted in that garage in an awfully weird
the thing
place.
Is, let's be honest though. If they only were able, if this happened in the garage, they were only able to work within the house and within the garage to get whatever they needed to get done before they moved John's body. Mm-hmm. So there could very well be blood stains in the carpet in the basement. If somebody went downstairs, let's say the washer and dryer is in the basement and that's where they went to strip off their bloody clothes.
Let's say the dog went to the fucking basement with blood on her paws.
Yeah, there could be so many things in that basement, but anyway. All right, let's move on to Jen. We got a couple more people. So obviously the Haas Long to Die, that was the 227 search, came 5 minutes after the butt dials between Brian Albert and Brian Higgins. Karen alleges that she deleted her search history, which we know she did. We know a lot about Jen McKay because a lot of it came out in testimony. She changed her statement to Lenk. Let's see.
Visited cops at their homes.
Yeah, so Karen is when she's searching for John after Karen finds him, that's when Jen immediately starts pushing the idea that Karen's car must have hit him. And then she changed her statement to Lenk from did I hit him? Maybe I hit him to I hit him. And then on the morning of, and this is something I want to read directly from the complaint. It says, quote, Karen phoned House defendant Jennifer McCabe, who already knew exactly what had happened to Mr. O'Keefe. Really bold to say that. It's in the complaint. It says, Karen Reed phoned House defendant Jennifer McCabe, who already knew exactly what happened to Mr. O'Keefe.
Yes.
Miss McCabe insisted that Miss Reed drive to Mr. McCabe's house rather than driving to 34 Fairview Road, which Reed did. The two of them were then joined by Carrie Roberts, and the three of them left the McCabe residence. However, rather than go back to 34 Fairview, oddly, Miss McCabe directed them to go back to Mr. O'Keefe's home, where Miss Reed had just come from. After the three of them finally drove to 34 Fairview. After the three of them finally drove to 34 Fairview. The illogical McCabe-directed route to 34 Fairview was intentional. It allowed the House defendants more time to finish creating the scene and hiding evidence before Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered on the Alberts lawn and first responders arrived, end quote. I think every time I read this, I'm still so blown away by the concrete words they're using to describe what happened.
Yeah.
She already knew. She set this up. She planned this. She
What's
redirected.
more likely than not, Mel?
I know.
A person who's pacing all night in her bedroom, sending texts that were later deleted, making a search that's later deleted. I don't think the fucking search matters. What does matter is lying about it. Mm-hmm. What does matter is telling Corri Roberts it happened in the back of a police car when it did not, and getting Corri Roberts to repeat that lie to a grand jury. That fucking matters. That matters.
Absolutely.
And it's like, again, if there's nothing there and if we should look the other way, why lie about it?
Exactly. I'll read one more little bit from this about Jen McCabe. Quote, specifically, Jennifer McCabe became the point person for the House defendants in providing their false narrative to investigators. She managed and communicated details about the House defendants' messaging and the investigation itself, including visiting Proctor's and other investigators' private residences, mapping out timelines to coordinate statements with other witnesses, leading group text message chains that were later partially deleted, and planning private meetings at all hours of the day and night. Indeed, these were never the acts of innocent witnesses seeking to help an investigation concerning the death of an alleged friend. Rather, they were predicate acts of a conspiracy among a group of people with a shared goal of deflecting their criminal exposure onto someone else.
Yes.
That's it, right
in
there.
my opinion.
That is it, right there.
What I've always been curious about, and this is not important, but I've always been curious about whether or not she was asked to take on that role, or she just did it because she's controlling and can't help herself.
I think she just did it.
I think so too. I think that Corri Roberts, I think she's a bring your enemies close kind of person.
Yep.
I think she's
and then buy them a couch.
Or give them money that they then use to buy a couch.
Yes,
maybe.
exactly.
The couch story is it's just like the J.D. Vance couch story. It's just so fucking funny. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, Mel.
I mean, I am a writer. So, I like to exaggerate.
Exactly. Says no real journalist ever, but I will say it because it is a funny story. Jen McCabe is, as much as I hate that a woman has become the villain in a crime that was definitely committed by a man.
But a woman's on the other side of the crime too.
She is really important, which I'm not saying anything that everyone watching this doesn't know, but her importance, I'm thinking again about the number of times stories changing doesn't bother me. Lies bother me. I mean, when stories change and it's a lie, that bothers me. Somebody's story shifting, changing, remembering something slightly differently, I don't fucking care about that. I don't remember anything. But lying until you're caught and then having a story to make that lie make sense, that's Jen McCabe, man. That's her whole personality.
Jen Bad McCabe.
Jen.
We have two more people. I'm going to go through this really quickly. We know Matt McCabe really, he was just sort of like the do husband sitting next to Jen McCabe. But the one thing he did say that is very important is that in that text exchange, the group text that he was participating in, he suggested having Chris Albert publicize their crafted story to a reporter saying, quote, ask Chris to ask some questions. Tell them the guy never went in the house, end quote.
Didn't it say LOL after that?
I'm sure it did. Yeah. And as an endorsement of the plan, Brian Albert responded, quote unquote, exactly. And then Karen's also alleging that he may have helped move John's body, which I find interesting. And I want to know what they have, to convince a jury of that.
Matt McCabe is not an oaf. He's an aggressive person. You see it in the Turtleboy sports video. The first thing he says is, hey man, can you leave me and my family alone? It's, you're here looking at little kids, you a pedophile or something. He immediately goes to that. He doesn't use those words, but he's an aggressive person. He's an aggressive person.
He and Jen McCabe are both bullies too. Yeah. That's the other thing.
Well, she was both bullies. They're still in high school.
Yeah, exactly. The last person is Higgy Bear. we know what Higgy Bear did. We know everything about how he moved that night, what he did. I still have questions about where the Jeep was parked. I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of that.
Or why it keeps coming up.
Or why it keeps coming up. You know why I think it keeps coming up, and I realized this when I was reading the complaint. It's because Jen McCabe is the one who decided where Karen's Lexus was parked.
That's right. I've always thought that. People think it's about Ryan Nagel and saying that he couldn't have seen Jen's car, which I think is just a benefit
Jen
to them.
decided.
Yeah, it's a benefit to them that they can say Ryan Nagel couldn't have seen into Karen's car. But I think it's because they could place her car somewhere, and it couldn't have. She couldn't have dropped him off closer to the driveway because her car was all the way over there.
And also the Jeep was there.
Yeah.
So that's the point. Like, they knew where they had put John's body. They needed to put Karen's car in front of John's body, and that's what they did.
Do you think Karen for a second remembers like where her fucking car?
She was drunk as fuck. Sorry, Karen. Okay, so that's basically everybody that they are suing the pants off of. And the key allegations and legal claims, which we've gone through a bunch of it, I'm only going to briefly touch on these because there's a bunch of USC, there's a lot of 1983 issues that they're going after. But there's the civil rights violations, which is Proctor, Bukhenik, Tully, and the House defendants violated her civil rights under the Constitution, as well as the Massachusetts Civil Rights Act. There is malicious prosecution, which I find very interesting, and it asserts that the defendants initiated criminal proceedings against her without probable cause, so with malice, basically. And that part of the suit is going to outline how Proctor and his MSP supervisors pushed forward, and I'm talking about Brian Tully here again, who should have known better. And who should have understood where this was going to go if they manufactured shit. And he just didn't do anything about it. Did you have something you wanted to say? Sorry.
No. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the complaints against the police departments. I'm really looking forward to those.
Yeah, I am too. The third one is intentional infliction of emotional distress. Apparently, that is called IIED. I did not know that. So it's basically that the defendant's conduct was extreme, outrageous, and intended to cause or done in a reckless disregard of causing severe distress. And I would say that's true based on the way that Michael Proctor is talking about Karen Read in his text messages, and based on how they went after Karen Read and who she is as a human being in this process.
Right.
And tried to tear down her character to make people believe that she could have done this.
That's right. That's right.
And there's nothing in Karen Read that would have done this.
No, of course not. I mean, I don't think there's anything in most people that would have done this because it's not what happened. It's not what happened.
But I mean, I know that a lot of people think she comes off as cold and yelly and screamy and all this like that.
She probably is.
She's scared. She's terrified. She's terrified.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time she's terrified.
But also, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit what her personality's like? I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Agreed.
Just like with Walsh, no one's rights should be violated, and hers were violated in spades.
In spades.
And she didn't do it.
No, she didn't do it, and he wasn't hit by a car, people. Okay, the next one that they're claiming is civil conspiracy, which alleges a conspiracy among all the defendants to share a common design. So when you said this last night on Court TV, and I'll say it again, when we talk about conspiracy, we're not talking about, how aliens came down and shot laser beams into our voting machines, and that's how Donald Trump became president, or that's how Joe Biden became president. What we're talking about is the actual definition of conspiracy, which is to share a common design and to act in concert to violate Karen Read's rights. And that is what the conspiracy means. It's a bunch of people getting together and agreeing to do something nefarious. I said it again.
Yes, we're agreeing to that they want a specific outcome, and this is how
goals.
We can get that done.
Yeah, they're a team. And Jen McCabe is the cheerleader, and Brian Albert is the coach. The last one is negligence and other counts. This is sort of vague. The complaint will likely include additional counts such as negligence or gross negligence by the town of Canton or Massachusetts State Police as institutions. And that's going to be added once procedural prerequisites are met. So it's all about the Massachusetts State Police, town of Canton. They'll be added later once they have to go through like court procedures to get them added to this. Any thoughts on any of those things? Should there be anything added? Should they take anything out?
No. I mean, no. I think this is well written and comprehensive. I mean, certainly there's stuff that we enjoy that we would love
Yes.
to be in here. Like, you know, we want to hear more about Colin Albert. We want to hear more about Chris. And I've always been very suspicious of Chris and Julie's movements on that night. Not
Colin,
that it necessarily, but like Chris and Julie, man, that story about him walking home and all that stuff, like, I don't buy it. Also, she went to bring them donuts and then she went home and then they came back. Like, there's just like a lot of shit there. But they just like the criminal trial, they want to get to what they can prove to be more likely than not.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the bar is lower here. And I think they did a fantastic job with it. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The only other thing that's left in the complaint is what Karen Reed wants from these people. She wants compensatory damages, which would cover the harm she suffered, financial costs, emotional distress, damage to her reputation and career. She wants punitive damages. And I love this because it's implying that the egregious, willful nature of the alleged conduct to punish it, that she wants it to punish and deter such misconduct in the future. And I think that's awesome. And I think that I agree with that wholeheartedly. She wants her attorney's fees and costs and any other appropriate relief, which could include injunctive or declaratory relief to ensure accountability. The best part about this, Karen Reed is demanding a jury trial on all claims, aiming for a public vindication in civil court as well.
Yeah. And a jury trial is what you demand when you know you're right, but you're worried the judge won't see it. Now, or you're taking a big gamble on a jury going your way because you think your case is shaky. But like, I would go for a jury trial too. She's a public person. Mm-hmm. She wants this to be public. She's never going to ever stop with these people. Mm-hmm. She's going to, if she has to drop this, or she's never going to settle it, in my opinion.
No, she's looking at 3 years down the road at this point, which is crazy.
She doesn't care.
This has been going on for 3 years already.
She doesn't care.
No. She wants her reputation back.
And
she
for
wants
her,
to win.
I'm like, good for you. You know, it's like, I hope you can obtain health insurance. Like, those are the things that matter.
Yeah.
That she has a lot of shit she needs to work on. But yeah, this is a read. I will tell anybody who hasn't read it.
Yeah,
read it.
It's good.
I read better sometimes when I print stuff out, which is why I printed this out, and I remember things better when I circle them. But it's a solid read.
I sometimes things go into my head a little bit better sometimes when I listen. That's why I like to listen to audiobooks. And that's why I'm recording it, because I feel like there are some people out there who just want to listen to someone else tell them what it says instead of having to read through it. So that'll be out on Friday, and this will be out on Friday. And do you have anything else you want to add, or is there anything else? God, we've already gone 2 hours.
We covered it. I think we covered it. I'm sure as soon as we're finished, I'm like, oh, we forgot to talk about.
Yeah, no
blah,
shit.
blah, blah, blah. But
that's what I'm worried about.
It's okay.
We have next week.
We have all the time in the world. We're still here. We're still here. And my dog is no longer faking a limp. So everything's right.
I told you they're evolving. Well, I really appreciate you sitting with me for 2 hours and talking about all this stuff. And it's so important. I can't wait to see the sidebars. I can't wait to talk about that next with you. And I guess until next time.
Until next time, Mel. This has been...
Wow. Something's off. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks.